Welcome back to Seeking True Love. Today I'm here with Ami Dave, and we are talking about cycle syncing, which is matching up the way that you exercise, eat, even socialize with your menstrual cycle. You may not have known that that was a thing that you can do. Actually, I didn't know that was a thing you can do until I met Ami, and I've learned a lot. I've been implementing some of it in my own life, and I've been seeing a lot of differences in the ease of things like PMS and period symptoms. So it's kind of an interesting thing to talk about cycle syncing with your dating life. And that's exactly what we're going to get into today. So, Ami, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome to Seeking True Love, dating advice for highly sensitive, heart-led women. If you're a deeply feeling, intuitive woman who longs for a relationship that meets you on every emotional level, you're in the right place. This podcast is for women who lead with their hearts and who refuse to settle for surface-level dating or emotionally unavailable partners. Here, you'll get practical dating guidance made for HSPs, support for the challenges sensitive women face, tools to stay grounded without abandoning your needs, and expert conversation about what true love really is and how to call it in for yourself. Because your love story should be extraordinary.
You're just right for me, and I'm just right for you. And I'll take your heart and squeeze so softly, so sweetly, forever love.
Ami Dave has been a physician's assistant for over 24 years. She is also a women's wellness coach specializing in helping moms navigate through this crazy life by syncing their daily habits with their monthly cycles. A mom of 3 boys, Ami realized her passion while making changes to improve her own symptoms. Using lifestyle changes, Ami helps women overcome chronic fatigue, frustration, stress, and feelings of overwhelm, replacing them with increased energy, efficiency, and empowerment. Amy also helps women transition into menopause gracefully. Her podcast is called This Incredible Mom Life, where she shares stories of the wild things our kids do. I was on that podcast and I shared some fun stories about my kids.
Yes, you did.
Is there any quick mom life story you want to share? I know that's deviating maybe a little bit, but just anything quick.
Oh, gosh. Oh, I don't know. Thanksgiving's coming. My kids, we all play football with the cousins and this and that. We have a big thing. So they're getting excited for it.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I know that when I was on your podcast, we talked about dating for single moms and your specialty is moms. But really, cycle syncing is for anyone.
Mm-hmm. Anybody who has a monthly cycle. Yes.
Yes. And talk a little bit more about how you got into this cycle syncing and why it's so important to do cycle syncing.
Or so I'm a PA, but I never knew any of this information. Like, this is not something that's taught in medical school or PA school. If you have PMS symptoms and you go to your doctor, they'll say you can take birth control, you can take pain medications, and you can use your heating pad. And that's about it, right? So I didn't know any of this until I was in my 40s. But basically, the foods you eat, the exercises you do, and even how you book your social calendar should vary based on where you are in the monthly cycle. Because every month, a woman who has her cycle is going through 4 distinct phases, and the body is doing different things in each of the phases. It needs different nutrients. Different exercises are more beneficial. And it's a more intuitive way of living, which I think we've, as a society, been taught to ignore and like turn off. Don't listen to the intuition where, in fact, we should be listening.
Exactly. So let's get into, so cycle syncing is basically that you're syncing up your habits with the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. So what are these 4 phases?
So everybody knows you have a monthly bleed. That's the menstruation phase. If you're trying to conceive, you may be tracking your ovulation, which is another phase. The week that you have the PMS symptoms is called the luteal phase. And then the 4th phase is right after your bleed, is the follicular phase, when you're generally feeling pretty good.
Yeah. What do you do in each phase? Just overview.
So I'm going to give you a quick overview, but I'll expand a little bit more on the social life. In the, let's say in ovulation, your body needs more raw vegetables and fruits. So things like smoothies and salads are really great. But in the luteal week, which is your PMS week, and the menstruation week, you need more warm foods. So soups and stews instead of the salads, right? So it might be something just as simple as, am I eating a cold food today or a hot food today? Same thing with the exercise. In certain phases, cardio is really good. In other phases, like your luteal week, strength training is actually better than high intensity cardio. So you want to just vary it out. But I think for you and this podcast, even how you book your social calendar can vary. So there are
Yeah.
some weeks where you feel more outgoing and social and you want to get dressed up and go out. And there are other weeks where you want to stay home in your pajamas. You don't want to go out. And if we learn to listen to what our body's saying, it can make things a lot easier. Like it can relieve physical symptoms. It can make your dating life a lot less stressful. It can make your more better and everything. So there's a lot of benefits to cycle syncing.
Yeah, it sounds like there's two aspects to this when it comes to somebody's dating life, which is how you would book a social calendar, whether you're going out or staying in. And if you're single, which most people listening to this podcast are going to be single, then you're looking at when do you go out and when do you stay in? And then it sounds like the second aspect of that would be intimacy and how you navigate sexual intimacy and romantic intimacy with somebody when you have a partner.
Yep.
So I want to touch on each of those. Let's start with the social calendar. One thing that I like to recommend for anyone who's single and looking to call in love is that they set aside at least 2 hours a week for working on their dating life. And I call it the date night. You have a date night every single week, regardless of whether or not you're actually going on a date. It's your date night. So let's say you pick Friday nights, because I know that's a night that everybody traditionally goes on dates. And you say, okay, so from Friday to 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., that's my date night. Now, in date night, you can do different things if you're single and you don't necessarily have a date. So you might book a date. If you're on a dating app, you might say, hey, let's grab a drink Friday night. That's my date night. However, let's say you don't have those plans. You may stay home and do some journaling or listen to a podcast like this or read a book on dating and relationships. That's another way to dedicate time to your dating life. So this is something that I actually did when I was single looking to call in love years and years and years ago, is how I came up with it. And then I started teaching it to my clients just to say you want to prioritize this every week. It's too easy for single people who don't have a relationship to just fill their calendar with everything else and never do this. So on these date nights, let's say you got 4 a week, or sorry, 4 a month, 4 in a cycle.
Yep.
And so I want to go through with you, what would somebody be doing in each phase? So are we going to start with the bleed phase, or what do you consider like phase 1 in a cycle? Is it the bleed?
So I'm going to start with the bleed just because that's the one everyone can understand the most, I think. When you're on your bleed, you probably don't feel like getting dressed up and going out. But in this phase, your intuition is really high. So it's a great time to journal about what you want in a partner, what qualities you're looking for, what values you're looking for. Maybe you can journal about past relationships and try to find a theme or a recurring point that always comes up. So one, this is a great time to be reflective, intuitive. And then this is the week where you take care of yourself. So it might just mean a warm bath. It could mean snuggling up with a book, your favorite book, like you said, a podcast, light some candles. Take care of yourself so that in the following week, which is the follicular phase, right after your bleed, that's when you are more open to try new experiences. So that's a great time for a first date. Or if you've been with somebody a couple dates already, maybe new experience. So something like those paint and sips or axe throwing, or I mean, whatever. Your brain is more primed to be open to new experiences at that time. So whether it's a new person or a new date night idea, That's really great in the follicular phase. So ovulation is our peak time for fertility, right? That's when you can get pregnant. From a evolutionary standpoint, that's where you want to really go out and be social and find somebody. So if you're single, that would be a time to set up a more intense date, maybe. So maybe you're getting dressed up, you're going out into the town, you're going to a concert or live music, or you're doing a group date, like a double date or triple date or whatever, meeting up
Like a
with
speed dating event,
friends.
maybe?
Something, you're more
Yeah.
social that week. So anything where you're out with people is fine. So it could be speed dating, it could be going out this is like the second or third date and you want to do like a double date with somebody or a triple date, or if your friends having a party, this would be a great week to be social, go out. You'll feel like dressing up, you'll feel the energy late at night. So that's ovulation. And then the last one is the luteal phase, which if you're taking care of your body, that can be a great week too. You don't have to be feeling crampy and bloated and irritable. So you can still go out, have fun. If you're not feeling great, that would be a time to become aware of these are the symptoms I'm having every month. And then maybe I do need to change the way I'm eating or the way I'm exercising to help me get feeling better in this phase also. There's your 4 phases and a little bit on how your social calendar changes.
That's great because I think that what you said about following the intuition as well, it's good to know about these things. And a lot of people do force themselves during times when it's not what they'd want to be doing. And I just think dating is so hard whenever you're forcing yourself to do something uncomfortable because you're not attractive, you're not magnetic in those moments. And so it just becomes like this self-fulfilling negative cycle of I don't want to go out, it's not going to work, and then you go out and it doesn't work. I used to coach a lot of men and I saw men would get into that cycle as well. Like I mean that mental cycle where they would go out almost like expecting to get rejected and then they would be like, "See, nobody wanted to talk to me" because they just went out with a bad attitude and it's like, well, it's very hard to be charming and social if you go out with that. And it sounds like there's kind of a similar thing going on here where if you go out when you're not feeling well and you force yourself to go out, you're probably not going to have the best time or the best results in dating. And then you're just going to come home feeling worse and more cranky. Then it just like starts over. So it's like you're really, I think, not that women need permission, but maybe we do need a little bit of permission to really follow our intuition and literally go with the flow here.
We've
So,
been taught to ignore it. So
yeah.
like you said, we've been taught, no, you're supposed to go out even on your plead and take your pain medicines and just go, right? But
What would you
we
say for someone that, because I've noticed now that I have practiced some of this over, I would say, about 3 or 4 months having known you. There are times where there just is something going on, and it's not like you can ask somebody
Yep.
to reschedule a party or whatnot, and you don't necessarily want to miss out. So, what would you say if there is something you've done the best you can, but if there is some event that you really want to go to and it happens to fall on your bleed, like what are some things that people can do just to help out, ease some of that anyway?
Yes, and it can happen. You could be on vacation, you could be at a wedding. I mean, things are planned a year in advance, right? So
Right.
if you're taking care of yourself the other days of the month, those 1 or 2 days, your body will compensate better if it's already like nourished and rested. You're managing your stress. You will be able to handle those couple days of activity and stuff where you're supposed to be home and resting. It's when you're not taking care of
Yeah.
yourself that you really feel it more.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. It's there's a buildup. And this is so important too, especially for highly sensitive people, because I noticed in your bio that you said you help people get out of overwhelm. And overwhelm is like the major pain point for HSPs because it happens to us so easily that it's like just as many tools as we can have to manage this. And one of the strengths of a highly sensitive person is a strong intuition. It's almost like you have to listen to your body, which is both a blessing and a curse. But when you're talking about something like this, don't override it, really listen to it so that, say, I don't feel like going out today. Because you had said it's intuitive. At the end of the day, it's
Mhm.
intuitive. Don't force yourself to exercise. Don't force yourself to eat a salad if what you want is a nice warm stew. That's something I've noticed too in practicing this is like I can be sort of aware because I do track my cycle in an app and I'll say, oh, look what phase I'm in. And I packed my salad for lunch today because I'm in the salad eating phase. And I
Mhm.
thought of you and I was like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
doing the thing and I'm going to go record with her. And it's good to be aware. And at the end of the day, you don't want to eat a skimpy little salad when you're bleeding. I always want steak on my bleed. I always
Yeah.
want like meat. And I know it's because
Yeah.
you're losing iron.
Yep. I'll give you an example real fast. Last month I was on vacation and I just happened to be on my bleed. Right. But we were in Lake Tahoe. My sister-in-law wanted to do like a hike, like not a strenuous hike, but like a walk, steep walk down the hill to the lake and whatever, this and that. And I was on my bleed. Normally I would have been cranky. I would have been hangry. I would have been complaining the whole time. But like I said, because I was taking care of myself, I knew this, I was anticipating it. So I was taking care of myself extra like the week before. And I'm always doing this now, but especially the week before when we were traveling, I made sure to go to bed early the night before. Like they were all hanging out and this and that. I was like, you know what? I gotta rest. I'll see you in the morning. And it was something I had to learn. Right. So now my vacation this last one was so much better than previous vacations because I would have been so irritable and probably made everybody else's day miserable. Whereas I was able to manage. I didn't do like the last part of the hike that was a little bit more steep and this and that. I was like, I'll just sit here. You guys go finish that. But I was able to enjoy the day more and have like a more stable mood. I was just feeling better overall.
Yeah. I liked hearing that you took care of yourself with not doing the last part of the hike because that's
Hmm.
exactly the kind of thing that I think everybody, to a certain extent, but especially highly sensitive people, we'll just try to push through because we think we should. And I'd love having examples of that kind of self-care where you're like not really inconveniencing other people, but you're not going along with the crowd. You're like, you know what? I'm going to stay here. And you were better for it.
Yeah.
And they were better for it because you
Hmm.
weren't cranky and irritable at the top of the
Yeah.
hill.
Yeah, exactly.
So everybody had a better time. And that's exactly the kind of thing in dating as well. Like if you're on a hike with somebody and they want
Hmm.
to go to the top and you're like, I can't make it to the top. Voicing that
Yeah.
it's that counterintuitive attractive thing
Or
where
you say,
it's
let's
like,
do it again in 2 weeks when I have the
yeah,
energy. Right.
right. Do you have any tips? I'm a big believer in radical honesty. I'm just wondering if you have any tips. Like you said, when I have more energy, like, do you do, do you just tell people like this is what I'm doing because I do cycle syncing, or do you have more subtle ways of talking about it? Do you would recommend just for people who maybe feel a little bit self conscious, like on a first date, being like, well, I want to reschedule, but I don't want to tell him it's because I have my period because I just met him, and I'm just curious about that.
I mean, you could go to a movie on the first date
Yeah.
if you are just happened to be on your bleed and that was the only day he was free or whatever. Like you can do something more quiet and calm. You don't have to go to a big event. Maybe it's a movie or maybe it's a phone date that week and you're just chatting on the phone like, hey, I can't come out, but I would love to get on the phone with you. And
Got it.
there are ways around it. Once you're in a relationship with somebody, like I've been married a long time, so I tell my husband at this point, listen, I'm on this phase in the month. I need to eat this food. I need to do this. Like, you stay away from me this week. But
Yeah,
once you get comfortable with
yeah,
somebody.
I would hope that at some point in a relationship you would get comfortable enough to share what's going on with your cycle, especially if you're being intimate. They kind of know what's going on anyway. And my partner is linked up to the app that I use.
Hmm.
He has the partner version and he's pretty aware. I was more wondering about first dates and you answered that question because it's not necessarily something you'd want to like put in a dating profile. I feel like it's a little bit intimate for that. I guess it's up to whoever. Maybe that's some weird patriarchy conditioning that we should all get over. But
Well, if you think about it, it's only about if you're having a normal, healthy cycle, your heavy bleeding should only be about maybe 48 hours. So like
that's
two
true.
days at the most. So if you're not in that heavy phase, you could go out.
Yeah, I've gone
Again,
hiking on
right?
day 5 of the bleed
Yeah.
and been fine.
And again, if you're taking care of yourself, so I used to have very heavy bleeding, right, for 3 or 4, 5 days. When I started cycle syncing, it's gone down to 2 days. So
Yeah.
there's options.
I noticed that too. I didn't have a super heavy bleed before, but I noticed that the heavy bleed with the cramps went down
Mhm.
to it shortened from about
Yeah.
3 days to about 1 day. There was
Yeah.
like 1 day where I was like, "All right, this is my day." But even that day is not it's not painful anymore. It's so
Yeah.
it's good stuff. I
Good.
highly
I'm
recommend
glad.
it.
I always love a
Yeah.
testimonial.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about the intimacy aspect of this. So now going through the 4 phases, let's say you're in a relationship and you're engaging in intimacy. Again, I know it's gonna be intuitive. One of the things that I always recommend is don't have sex if you're not turned on. I know some people have the more responsive sexuals. There's like 2 different types of turn on. Oh, no, I don't remember what the other one is called. There's one where I think it's spontaneous, where you're like, "Oh, I'm horny right now." And that's the spontaneous one, and then there's responsive, which is you're not feeling it until there's some kind of foreplay or some kind of romance that already starts. So, you do need to be aware that if you're the more responsive type, maybe you won't be feeling it right away, and at the same time, you do wanna be intuitive about what kind of intimacy you might be looking for because there's ways to be intimate outside of sexual intercourse, and
Yes.
sometimes it's just a good snuggle, but of course you can have sex in all of your phases.
Mhm.
I would love to hear from you, like, going through the phases again like you did with the date night. What
Yeah.
might somebody wanna consider in each phase?
So I'm gonna go backwards this time. I'm gonna start with the follicular phase.
Mhm.
When you bleed, your hormones go down to their lowest level, right? So in the follicular phase, your hormones are starting to come back up. You're starting to feel better. As your hormones are coming up, you may need some lubricant. Again, in the follicular phase, this is a great time to try a new position, a new whatever fantasy outfit, something new or different, creative. That's the follicular phase. In ovulation, you have a surge of testosterone, which makes you naturally excited and ready to go. You probably won't need much foreplay or anything in that week. You're just kind of,
I've noticed
yeah,
that.
you're ready to go because it's that testosterone, right? Like we get a surge of both estrogen and testosterone, but it's mainly the testosterone that is like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do it. Quickie, 5 minutes, whatever. I'm good. In your luteal phase, you may need an extended period of foreplay. So if you're used to a few minutes, maybe double it, or again, try something different, light some candles, set the mood. And then that's when your like progesterone hormone's really high. So that's your like nesting hormone. And you're not getting pregnant in that week, but your body's anticipating that you're already pregnant. So that's the more calming hormone. And then when you're bleeding, you can also be intimate, but that's when your hormones bottom out. So then you do need lubricant because blood is actually drying. So you want to make sure you have extra, even if you don't use it the rest of the month, you would use it that week. And like you said, there's other ways to enjoy being with a person. If you don't want to deal with the bleed, there's plenty of other things you can do to stay intimate.
Yeah. And it's intuitive.
Once you get the hang of it, initially it takes some time to get used to and just track your cycle and learn. But if you start to listen to your body, it'll tell you what you need.
Yeah. What about people who are on birth control? That's something you had mentioned when we did our initial
Mhm.
talk. People who are on birth control, their hormones are not going through these cycles.
Yep.
So how would they follow a cycle syncing?
So the whole point of birth control is to shut off your own hormonal fluctuations. And it just gives you like the same steady state of hormones all month long. And it actually makes your body think that you're pregnant. So there are two options. One, if you're okay with non-hormonal birth control methods, once you get really good at cycle syncing, you're only fertile for about 5 days out of the month where you could get pregnant. So if you take extra precautions, if you're using condoms and spermicides and other things, you can live without hormonal birth control and still not get pregnant. And if you're on it, some women like to sync up with the moon, the lunar cycle. So like your full moon would be ovulation, the new moon would be your bleed, and you can cycle that way because that's also like a 4.5 week cycle. So if you just wanted to get into the habit of cycling, you could follow the moon.
And that would be beneficial to your body in other ways just by
Mhm.
having the cycle.
Yeah, because you can't, again, push, go, go, go every day, right? So you would still be taking like that new moon time is when I stay home and when I rest and take care of myself. So yeah, you would
That's
still
a
get
nice way to do
benefits.
it.
You wouldn't get the intuition of like, maybe not when your hormones are surging, you wouldn't have that maybe extra intuition of something. But you could still, in general, sync with the moon to be healthy.
I have heard, because you mentioned the spermicide, I've heard that that can be disruptive to hormones. Is that, I'm asking you because you're the PA. It's something I have heard, but not
Depends.
everything
I'm going
you
to
hear
say
on the
depends
internet.
on the brand and the ingredients. Because
Okay.
you want to go with things that are like no fragrance, no parabens, no phthalates. Those are all called endocrine disruptors. More natural, non-toxic stuff is probably better.
Yeah, so it really just depends. I think that's true even for like, I try to be careful with my skincare products and
Mhm.
soaps and different things like
Yeah.
that because there's all kinds of endocrine disruptors.
Yeah.
So that's something to be aware of as well because you might have something disrupting your cycle in other ways, and especially if you're highly sensitive. I mean, I think most highly sensitive people are already very careful about what shampoos and soaps they're using, but I know parabens is one. Do you have a list of generally ones that people would want to avoid?
There's a bunch. So the phthalates, it's like PHATH is like some big long word. The alcohols in like your and things, petrolatum, which is like petroleum jelly, and aquaphor and those things. It's all kinds of things like anolamines. Like you just want to read the thing. If it says natural ingredients and non-toxic and you're reading it and you're like, yeah, this is like beeswax and coconut butter and shea butter and like
Right.
anything with fragrance is usually not great. And there are like you can get an app, I forget what the name of it. It's like the environmental living or something where you can scan a product and it'll actually tell you like it'll give you like a scale of 1 to 5 where it is being clean or toxic, and it'll tell you, I forget the name. I think it's environmental living, and there's another one. I think there's
Yeah,
2 food scores, and there's one called healthy living. And
Okay.
if you go in healthy living, I think you can actually scan like the barcode of the product, and it'll give you like, this is an allergen, or this is toxic, or this is good for you, or whatever. It gives you like a little breakdown.
That's a great resource. Again, if you're highly sensitive, I think you want to know what's going on because there's just so many things that can disrupt you on a daily basis and get you in a state of overwhelm before you even walk out the door that you really got to eliminate as much as you possibly can. And I know that you had said, be careful with the cardio, be careful with too many salads. You told me at one point that you actually had to stop doing so much cardio and stop eating so many salads to get this under control. And you lost weight when you ate less salads and more hearty foods.
Yeah. I had to eat more and exercise less, and I have more muscle tone now than I ever did.
Yeah. So counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive to the medical world, but
Yeah.
intuitive to us, our own
Mhm.
bodies.
Yeah.
All right. So my last question to you is, what is true love?
What is true love? That is a great question. So having been married a very long time, I'm on the opposite end of most of your listeners, but and we've had our ups and downs too. So it's been rocky. But I think first, if you can acknowledge that you yourself are not perfect and you have flaws, and then acknowledge that your partner is also not perfect and they have flaws, and you can still be with them and create some happiness and joy, then that's true.
Well said. Love it. Will you talk a little bit more about your own relationship? How long you've been married?
We have been married 23 years,
Long time?
a long time. I barely knew him when I got married.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he was in Minneapolis, I was living in New York, and we met at our Indian singles convention that was held in New Jersey. And so we had a long distance relationship for about 11 months before we got married.
Wow. And then you just got married.
Yes, I was in the throes of the initial phase, I think, of attraction and this and that. I hadn't really gotten to know him or what I was getting into. I was very young also. So it's been its challenge. And another fun fact is 4 months after we got married, I was diagnosed with a kind of cancer called lymphoma. So
Oh
I
my
actually
gosh.
ended up moving back home with my parents because my dad was a doctor and he knew all the doctors and nurses in the hospital and everything. So I ended up moving back in with them for about 6 months as a newlywed.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know you had a cancer history, actually.
Yeah.
You've had a lot going on.
Mhm.
It sounds like you've overcome a lot of health challenges in your lifetime.
Yeah. So, like I said, we've had our ups and downs, but we've learned to communicate. A lot of our arguments have been on misconceptions or, oh, I thought you meant this. Like, no, 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 I really meant this. And we're working on it. It's getting better.
Yeah. I think you're always gonna have some of those miscommunications. It's just people have different brains, and sometimes you say a word and it gets heard a different way, and you have to redo it. You have to explain yourself, but I think it's a good sign when the argument is a miscommunication and not an actual clash of values. Ami, do you have resources for anyone that is interested in cycle syncing?
I do. So I have a free guide called Learn to Live a Life Without PMS, and it gives you an introduction to the 4 phases. And it also gives you some quick tips that you can start doing in those phases. And also, if you go to Pinterest and you type in cycle thinking, you'll get a whole bunch of charts if you're a visual person. So that's also a great resource.
Great. And I will put all your links in the show notes. So if people want to coach with you, because when you do your coaching with someone, it's very in depth and personalized, right? For the cycle syncing.
Yeah. So we go through a 3-month program, which means we go through 3 full menstrual cycles with together.
That sounds great. So yeah, if you're struggling with any kind of PMS, and certainly if your menstrual cycle is interfering with your ability to date or be social, I would say reach out to Ami and use her as a resource because she will get you going. And even if you just want to improve, feel better, use some of these tips, get the PDF. I've been using that PDF now for about 3 months, and I have noticed a difference. So even just that resource, so valuable. Can't recommend it highly enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any last words of wisdom for us?
Take care of yourself, listen to your body, and I think the rest will fall into place.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Ami.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.